shit. Please tell me. Alright, we're gonna try to get this in as quickly as humanly possible. Got the always lovely New York City construction banging outside my fucking window. We have construction workers constantly peering in. Makes me want to walk around with my fucking ass out. Anyways, this is my second time trying to record this episode. The last time I tried to record it, it felt a little bit like I was doing a bread tube essay. It felt very kind of overly formal, and I think what I want it to be is more of a conversation. And really what I wanted to talk about on this episode is kind of the demeaning nature of marketing yourself on the internet and Instagram as an artist. Because every time I log on to Instagram or the internet, it seems like one giant humiliation ritual for all artists who aren't at, blue chip galleries. They have to do all of this stupid, demeaning shit to get views and to get sucked up into the algorithm. And to me, one major issue with that type of content is, in some ways it champions the artist's ego over the art. It forces the artist to put their ego front and center. And so it becomes this big display of how can I present myself as an artist, the image of yourself as an artist, as opposed to the art itself. It reminds me of that meme where the top part is object and then the second part of the image is a woman's face in front of the object. Yeah, it feels like this is some sort of inescapable. And the other thing is I can relate to it. If you're not with some big institution, or you're not clued in or at some big blue chip gallery, you have to do this stupid shit, which sucks. And it feels like you're being forced to walk around with your pants pulled down. And it also feels as if you have no real other option. If you don't do it, it feels your shit kind of dies. It's really kind of a example of the medium is the message. The medium of Instagram is kind of shaping a lot of the artistic output now. Yeah, and another thing I was thinking is, this entire generation, also like just the presence of being on Instagram has been totally impoverished. Everything feels like LinkedIn, like everything is so polished. Even with normies on Instagram, every subcategory of person on Instagram has like this predefined boilerplate set of kind of grid post stories, whether it's an artist, an athlete, skateboarder, coastal elite influencer, fashion person. Every subgenre of person has this boilerplate way of posting and expressing themselves online. And it feels as if they're like, all of this is some sort of professional resume to impress you, and it feels less like anybody's actual personality is ever really being seen on there. And I think in some ways that has to do with the fact that people are treating Instagram and the internet now like a lottery system, and they think that if they curate everything for the algorithm and they do it all right, or at least how they've been told to do it, that the proverbial claw. You guys remember the claw from Toy Story that comes down and picks up the little aliens?
It moves. I have been chosen. Farewell, my friends. I go on to a better place.
And so everyone treats those platforms like a lottery system, and they feel like they have to be on their best behavior. And so there's really like no personality anymore. There's like this total lack of variety. And you see this across everyone, celebrities. It's just really stale and really mediocre and boring. And same thing with art. You would think, oh, artists, they're going to be really out there and edgy and eccentric, but really they're the most like buttoned up people you follow. It's so fucking boring now. You get more edgy, interesting content out of normies sometimes instead of artists. It's totally ass backwards. And yeah, I think that in some ways has to do with just the downward mobility of Americans. Like, Americans are so desperate to get out of the rat race, and the rat race doesn't even pay its dues anymore. And so now they're looking in a desperate attempt to escape to like social media. They're like, if I follow all the rules, maybe I'll get plucked out and I won't have to do this bullshit anymore. And what ends up happening is everything becomes really stale and kind of boring. I think another thing, I keep going back to this article written by Lindy Man. I think he's blocking me, but he did write a good essay or blog post a number of years ago, and it was on this thing called refinement culture. And I think a lot of people are probably familiar with this now, but it's kind of like, it spells out how in previous decades there was a lot of variety across many different domains, whether it was graphic design or, sports or architectural design or fashion, what have you. And then through the lens of refinement, making it more effective, you lose a lot of the variety, and everything kind of becomes similar across those domains. So I think one example he gives is graphic design, how there was a lot of variety and sort of eccentricities through graphic design, and now there's kind of a there's like a commonality between all of them now, and they've all been refined and made to be very kind of mediocre. I think a lot of people in the graphic design world have already talked about this, and now there's a push towards maximalism now. I think when he was saying it was more this push towards sort of minimalist modernism, but now you could still say the same thing. Now it's the same, it's the same sort of refinement, but just in the other direction of maximalism. And yeah, another one he gave an example of, or one he gave an example of was basketball. How 30 years ago, if you were to look where people were taking shots on a basketball court, there was tons of variety. It was in the middle of the court, on the corners, where have you. And now, if you look at it, it's just these little hot pockets. And that's kind of how Instagram content and artistic content feels like now. It feels like it's been refined in that same way, where similar to the what we're talking about in terms of expressing yourself, it's all refined into these really neatly defined subcategories, and there's virtually no variety. I think one of the silver linings, or at least one of the things that I always think back to, is there was this great interview that Louis C.K. did. I can't remember if it was Mark Maron with Mark Maron or whoever, but he was talking about how early on in his career, a lot of the stuff that he was doing was ego driven, and it wasn't until the birth of his daughter that he kind of relinquished that. And you can really see this transformation in his career, because after that, a lot of the stuff that he was doing is the stuff that you're familiar with. It's super raw, it's truthful, and it's honest. And that's when everything started taking off for him. And so I think that's kind of analogous to what we're talking about with the Instagram and the algorithm and all of this that incentivizes kind of ego first and art second. If you can really put that aside, put away the ego, what can end up happening is, you're creating a space for kind of raw, authentic, honest things, and those are the most important. I think that, this might be kind of sappy or overly optimistic, but I think that if you that will always win out. That will win out quality wise above, corny gimmicks and stuff like that. And so really that's kind of my silver lining or optimistic perspective on this. And yeah, I think that that's kind of what I've got for you all today. Hope you'll enjoy it.